looking at the kind of the older titles that you've got, is there one? And you might not be able to answer this if you're not allowed to. Then feel free to fob me off. um, is there one that you have really desperately wanted that you've just not been able to get over the line?
Oh yeah. There's actually I always put these in the same answer or the same. Well, it's always the same answer for me when I think about that because it's two titles, two franchises, I should say, and that's Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street. So
Right.
we've done designs for those in the past that were we've done them like limited edition ones, or we've done like that were unlicensed, which a lot of people tend to do, and then we've done it too many times where you put it out for a few days or whatever. And then we've also done like parody type stuff that you can do legally, because you're making like I talked to a lawyer about this to see if we're crossing the line too much, but we've never been able to officially use those titles, and it's not for lack of trying. In fact, I've been to Warner Brothers offices in California. I've met with them every year. I've talked to many, like all the time, in email, on the phone, and whatever, and they're just not willing to sign another licensee. Now, part of the issue is that both franchises were kind of caught up in some legal issues. I'm sure you know what the Friday the 13th issue, the writer, director, Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. And there's still, I know things were sort of resolved with that, but there's still a bunch of up in the air stuff. And I think Warner Brothers was not like, they still work with some companies that do official stuff for sure. And some of that stuff had to be approved prior to the litigation that was going on, but they almost don't want to deal with it right at the moment. Unless you're already a company that's kind of had it before and you can kind of get certain things approved. They're not trying to add new people or new business, right? So it's kind of at this weird standstill, and I don't know for how much longer. I've been trying for years. I mean, years. I've been knocking on their door like all the time, basically, and just haven't been able to like get a deal signed. So it's unfortunate, but I'll tell you, I've always wanted to work with Warner Brothers because they have a lot of great titles that I really like. I mean, I'm a fan of, all Lost Boys, Critters, Gremlins. I mean, they have a ton of stuff. Other than just Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. But even if I had those two franchises, I'd be good for a while.
Yeah, and I think we must be about 13 years maybe since the last Friday and Friday the 13th movie. I think it was under Platinum Dunes, wasn't it? Michael Bay's production company?
It was Platinum Dunes, yep. And then that was 2010 was the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. But the last Friday we got was 2009, which I thought was a solid movie. I mean, much better than the Nightmare remake to me. But
I'd agree. I liked what they done with Jason in that. They kind of the prologue was the first movie, wasn't it? And then it kind of made him almost like a war veteran, like going through tunnels and setting traps, and it made him really brutal. I really appreciated that. But the the Nightmare one, I like Jackie Earle Haley. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, I love Jackie Earle Haley. I just feel like it was just not done the right way for me, fan. But but the Friday the 13th, I thought hit a lot of the right points that I wanted in a Friday film. And even expanded, like you said, the tunnel thing and the kidnapping thing was definitely a twist on his character, but I didn't mind it so much. It still felt in the same vein of those other films. So it's definitely rewatchable, whereas a Nightmare on Elm Street remake I've only seen once, and that was in the theater, and I have no desire.
It was a kind of era where, and not just putting this all on Platinum Dunes, but it was where they would remarket a well-known property to try and make money from as low a budget as they probably could get away with. And we've got past that now. We're into a great era, great Blumhouse, great indie horror, great franchise remakes with the Halloween, the movies. And what you were saying there actually about parody shirts, I'll show you this because I'm wearing it. I don't know if you can see Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, that's awesome. I see that got Ghostface on there, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So It's that's from a UK company, I think. But yeah, the parody thing must be why that gets away with.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. Like, look, if a company that owns Ghostface didn't want that, I'm sure they could certainly send a cease and desist. But um,
Right.
that was a thing. So just to kind of that first design I told you about, WW Hockey Mask D, I got a cease
Yeah.
and desist from. This is before New Line was bought by Warner Brothers, but I got a cease and desist from New Line Cinema because of that hockey mask, because it was identical to a Part 6. It had the same everything.
Right.
And they own certain trademarks to the hockey mask. They own the eye shapes, they own the triangles, they own like all those components together are under
Mm.
their trademark. So I said, okay, if you own the eye shape, I'm going to change the eye shape. If you own those triangles, I'm going to change that. If you own the shape of the mask, I'll change that. I changed everything until where it looked like an alien, but it still looked like a hockey mask. And I was a little blunt, probably more so than, I don't know. Basically, what I told him, I said that I removed all of your trademarks and I will continue selling the shirt as is. And they basically said, well,
It's that. Fingers crossed.
they basically said, don't call it Friday 13th. And I'm like, well, I never did. I always put it as WWJD. That was how I marketed it on my website.
Yeah.
It wasn't even Jason, it was WWJD, because that's how it looked on, when you had the What Would Jesus Do, WWJD, right?
Yeah.
So they never bothered me about it again. And it's funny, the next day, I don't sure you're familiar, maybe you're not, but there's a mall store in the US called Hot Topic. And
Mhm. Yeah.
they I ended up selling like 8,000 shirts the next year into Hot Topic of What Would Jason Do, of that design, the remade one. Because they
Right.
wanted the original. I said, I can't sell you that because, I think I had the cease and desist at that point. I'm like, I can't
Mm.
tell you that. But when I redesigned it and I kind of got the okay from New Line, the next day Hot Topic was like, yeah, we want it. And they ended up ordering like 3,000 and they ordered like another 3,500 or so. It was like a couple orders over the next year. And this was 17 years ago. You know what I mean? This was a while
Mm.
ago.
Yeah.
But that was pretty wild. But that kind of loops in the whole like cease and desist thing with Friday 13th and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in Hot Topic in September when I was in Orlando,
Oh, okay.
um, and I got my niece t-shirt or something. I can't remember
Nice.
exactly, but I was in the area. But I always go to Hot Topic. It's a well-known and well-worn. I think you used to always get band t-shirts in Hot
Yeah,
Topic as
yeah.
well. I think as well, Limp
So a
Bizkit
lot
and
of
Linkin
bands
Park
push
and
that.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. So we don't have them here, so it's disappointing. We used to have similar style, but they've all kind of died out. Um, Out of all the stuff that you've got on the site, is there any ones that do you get like the design sent to yourself? Do you get like a here's the season of the witch lounge pants for you can wear in the house, or and is there ones that are your real favourite designs? Do you have anything like that one
Yeah,
you
I
really
mean,
love? It
we keep, we keep an archive of everything pretty much. Like, and when everyone in the warehouse, I'll say, just when you get an archive of design, just make sure, like if it's a t-shirt, make sure it's a medium because that's the size I wear. So I literally have a storage area of probably 2,000 shirts right now that are all one, like each one's different, like 2,000 different types of shirts, and they're all my size. So I put
nice.
them out once in a while. I don't wear them all or anything. Most of them are just to store, just to kind of
Yeah,
have. Um,
yeah,
it's hard to say. It's in my personal closet at home. I obviously have a bunch of t-shirts. I tend to wear blank t-shirts a lot. Like I'm wearing one today. I'm wearing just a black t-shirt. Or I have like 4 or 5 Fright Rag shirts that I wear in rotation, like the same ones. Like one of the ones I've been wearing that I wear constantly and consistently is our Night of the Living Dead. It's just the poster art that we did, but we distressed it and we put it on a heather gray polyblend tee from a few years ago, like 5 years ago. I still wear that
hmm
at least once a week. I personally, when I grab it, like I love obviously everything we do. I have to love to a certain degree, right? I'm not going to put anything
yeah.
up.
Of course.
Some things I like less than I like other things because it's my own personal aesthetic in terms of like I could look at a piece of art and go, oh my God, that is gorgeous. I think people
hmm
will like that. I think it will do well for us in sales. but I personally wouldn't wear it, not because I don't like it. It's just not my personal style, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I personally gravitate to more often than not is usually one or two color designs. So one of the things that we started doing several years ago was creating fake, if you will, newspaper ads for movies. So like I know when I was a kid, and again, I don't know about where you are, but like in the newspapers, they'd promote the movies and they would always have, and of course, newspapers being black and white, they'd have like the image of the movie poster and then now showing, or, and then the dates and times underneath. And
Mhm.
similarly with TV Guide, our TV Guide, it was like first time on TV and they would advertise it, right? So we
Yeah.
started doing our t-shirt designs like Halloween and Halloween 2. And we actually did 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We did, and 6. Now that I think about it, we did TV ads for those. So, and I would
Nice.
use the logo of the station that I watched when I was a kid, which was Channel 31. So and
Right.
it doesn't exist anymore, but we use the logo. And I wear those all the time because to me, it's a childhood thing. I saw Halloween when I was 4, first time on, it was when it was first time on TV in 1981. So
Okay.
there's definitely a little bit of nostalgia thing there, and I like wearing those shirts. So it's hard to pick a favorite because it's like a child of yours. Like
Mm.
I definitely go through phases. Like when Justin Osborne did the Black Phone one, I was like, oh my god, like that was like my desktop
Yeah.
for a while, and um, things like that. Obviously, because Halloween's my favorite movie of all time, I'm biased when it comes to wearing Halloween shirts,
Yeah.
or like Slumber Party Massacre, other films that are like my favorite. I'll wear those obviously more. But it is fun.
Mhm.
I some of our customers, I mean, I'm no kidding, have 100, 200 t-shirts and they send us pictures and they're wearing. And the irony is like I will rotate the same 5 shirts in my and again, 3 of those 5 shirts might be black blank shirts. You know what I mean? It's so funny, but I think it's because I'm around it all the time. I'm around
Yeah.
the artwork and everything, that I love being around it and being a part of it, but I'm not always wearing it. Although I do wear our lounge pants every single day at home, and I absolutely wear those all the time because it's they're just super 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 comfy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
But
the same. I have grey lounge pants on just now. I don't have a design on them. There's grey, but it has to be done. As I said, Spider Man, DC. I'm just one of those. You've got to live in comfort. It's easier.
absolutely, and that's the thing. I work from home a lot anyway, and I mean, I usually wear them at night, like when when I'm home after dinner. You get pajamas on, whatever. I'm always wearing our lounge pants, and they're
Mm.
great in the winter and in the summer. Like they don't get like too cold or too hot type of thing. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I would say those, and I probably have 10 or 20 pairs of lounge pants in my closet or something because but a lot of times I'll get a sample, the factory sends us a sample and, I'll wear
Mhm.
those, usually it's the samples that I get that I end up wearing. And then the ones that we get for our inventory are just down in the warehouse. So, yeah.
Aye. Nice. So we'll move on now to a bit more movie chat. But the first question I want to ask you, in terms of Fright Rags, I, and forgive me if you actually already do this, but like there's Bloody Disgusting have been kind of helping in production of movies.
Hmm.
Is that something that you would be interested in doing with Fright Rags, or if you've already done it, I apologise, I'm not aware.
You're fine. It's funny. It's funny you bring this up because I was just having a couple of guys that work with me, Eric and Tansky. We were just having lunch together and we were talking about movie ideas because
Yep.
so we've done a few short films in the past. We were
Mhm.
starting to do them once a year and then COVID hit, but we started, so we, in 2017, 18 and 19, we did and they're on we can go to youtube.com/fright rags and there's a playlist that has and they're only like 2.5 minutes long. They're not very long, you know,
Okay.
and we were doing
Mhm.
them because we do these screenings at a local theater every month. We call it Saturday Night Rewind. We host screenings, so we get movies, like anything that we want to show that we can get rights to. We'll show it, and then in October we do every week. So we show a movie every week, and it's usually, obviously, that's more horror based. We do mostly horror based, but we kind of go outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
Like this year, we just had a meeting about it. We're going to be doing like The Dark Knight, and we're going to show maybe Jaws and Jurassic Park and stuff.
As I said, it was bloody disgusting. They're the kind of news site, and then there's Shudder, primarily a streaming site, and then they got into the production of movies and direction or whatever they've taken on board. But yeah, it'd be really cool to see, especially if you've got these really interesting artists you work with as well. It's always great to hear new voices in horror, and I think that's one of the things that keeps it fresh. And horror fans are so open to independent horror movies as well, and we will watch them and give them their credit where it's due, and it's just great to see new companies coming on board as well. So, in terms of yourself for horror movies, horror franchises, you've obviously said Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 are favourites of yourself. What is your go-to franchise? Do you have one?
Franchise. It's hard to say because it's okay. So Halloween is my favorite film of all time, not just horror film, like top of all time. And so I love the franchise. I love pretty much every film in that franchise, with the exception of like Resurrection is definitely not a favorite of mine. But I pretty much throw on any of the Halloween films and be completely satisfied. However, I would almost say, as a franchise whole, Friday the 13th went out for me, because every one of those films, to me, there's something in them that I love. Even the ones that I don't like as much, which are many. Plus, well, I guess by now Halloween has the same number of movies as Friday the 13th, maybe even one more.
Yeah.
The thing about Halloween is that there's so many different timelines going. So you can watch, like, Friday the 13th, you can watch 1 through at least 8, if not Jason Goes to Hell and X, and have it, look, the continuity is all over the place. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's some storyline, but it follows a similar arc where it's like, we're just going to do what we want, but we still have this character, right? And as opposed to trying to be like, oh, well, this one really is after part 2, or this one's really after part 1, or this one's after this, which, again, I love about the Halloween franchise. But and the other thing I always said about Friday the 13th is, because they came out so often, you really had this, like, each one is a snippet of where it was, what year that was. So, like, when part 5 came out, it was like 84, 85, right? 85, I think. That is a perfect 1985 movie. It's of its time. Like, each movie is it's a snapshot of its time. And you can actually feel the way the 80s changed when you watch 1 through 8. Because pretty much 1 a year came out for the most part. And you can kind of track how movies changed over that time. So to me, it's like this interesting time lapse of the 80s. So that's just, I say all that because Halloween is like my love, but like 13th's like my mistress or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always watching it. In terms of franchises, like, in terms of, like, those are the ones I grab. And I'm a slasher kid, so like I'm always going to gravitate towards slashers, as much as I love other franchises that aren't slashy based, you know. But even then, like, Hellraiser 1 and 2 are great, 3 is okay, and then it kind of starts falling off, right? Or, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre's got weird stuff going on. As much as I love 1 and 2, it gets weird, right? Nightmare on Elm Street, I love those films to death, but like 5 is like okay, like there's one redeemable scene in 5, like the comic book dude that's my favorite. 6 is like it's not that good. Like, I like 7, so there's elements of all those that I like, but Friday is like a 1, oh yeah, 2, oh yeah, 3, my favorite, 4, yeah, it's like you could just keep going and going, and you know.
It's the most enjoyment out of them in terms of kind of franchise consistency.
As a whole, exactly. As a whole, I go, okay, I probably would win those out. But Halloween's a very, very close second. It's just those different timelines. So you can't watch 1 through 8 and have some sort of cohesive storyline. You're kind of jumping around.
For me, it would probably be Scream, I think.
Okay,
it would be big. For a while, it might actually have been Paranormal Activity, but the last maybe I think there's maybe 8 Paranormal Activity movies, including last year's or the year before's Next of Kin, which
Yep.
I could not get on board with. Really disliked. So I think Scream overall, especially following on for Scream 5, which I absolutely adored, absolutely loved it.
Oh, that was
And
fun.
mm, and 4 is hugely underrated. 3 is probably the weakest point of the franchise for me. But yeah, it's just great slasher movies. As you're saying, being a slasher fan, that is kind of what I would go for. So you've said obviously Halloween's your favourite horror movie, if not movie of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Is Michael your go-to horror movie killer or antagonist? Is it Michael? Is he the one?
Yeah, I would say, and again, it's very hard because I love the looks of Jason. Like there's certain
Hmm.
looks. Michael would be my go-to. I mean, like that's the one I dress up as for Halloween. That's the
Yeah.
one that I would like. I love the looks of Michael Myers. Like obviously the original is always my favorite in terms of the look and style, but the cool thing about Michael is that he looks so different in different lighting with that same mask.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard really to have a look of Michael unless you're going for like the new trilogy, which I feel like you can get a mask that pretty much accurately portrays it because there's a lot of texturing going on and the
Hmm.
wrinkles and stuff. Um, I mean, obviously there's a wide range of those types of masks, but I've seen a lot of really well ones, well done ones. Um, so I would say Michael was probably my favorite, but I love the different types of Jason because I like part 3 where he's just kind of a guy in a mask, whereas
Hmm.
in part 4 to a degree as well. But then part 7, he's full on zombie Jason and Kane Hodder that's badass with the cutout of his mask and everything, and um, so I like all the different looks of him. I even like Backhead Jason part 2. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot to have fun with and work with those movies. So, but
Hmm.
Michael's my guy. Like if I ever get a tattoo, it'll be Michael.
No. I've got a few, but I don't have a. do you have a? Do you have a favourite horror director, or again, is that a kind of unfair question to ask?
It's hard. I mean, look, I would say, I mean, and not because of just Halloween, but John Carpenter for me probably is the one, and because I look at his catalog of movies and I go, okay, yeah, obviously Halloween's my favorite movie of all time. But if you take Halloween off the table and you say you can't say Halloween, then I go, well, okay, The Thing, Christine, They Live. There's all these other movies that I love from John Carpenter. So it's
Hmm.
not just the one. So he's top of mind. I mean, there's a lot of great directors. I love Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Um, I love Fulci and Argento. I there's a lot of directors where I look at and go, man, these are just amazing, just visionaries.
Hmm.
But me, John Carpenter, the way he used, widescreen and the way I don't know, it's just so good. He just, I just, I love his style, especially the movies from the 80s, like
Hmm.
that whole era, that basically decade. I mean, it's like, he did a lot of great work.
Yeah. It's funny you're saying, so I'm recording another podcast soon with a guest, and he has picked John Carpenter to discuss, and he picked The Thing, The Fog, and Prince of Darkness. But then you've also
Oh,
got In the Mouth of Madness.
yeah.
As you're saying, there's just so much great stuff from him. He's a
Well,
master.
it's funny you said that because, like, now that I think about it, obviously The Fog and Escape from New York, but I posted this on Twitter. I don't know, maybe last year sometime. It was just a stream of consciousness, but I think people sleep on Prince of Darkness as in terms of a classic John Carpenter film. I know we always
Mm.
talk about the ones I mentioned. They Live. The Thing, and obviously Halloween and stuff. Even Assault on Precinct 13 is great though.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but Prince of Darkness, as a kid, when I first saw it, I mean, it came out in 87. I remember renting that, and I was like, I wouldn't say I was like freaked out, scared by it, but it was a freaky movie. Like
Yeah.
had elements to it that were really unnerving. And as a rewatch, so I've rewatched it several times in the years, and that score, that dun 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 dun, like it's a constant, just in the background droning thing that makes you feel like there's something's going to happen. And it's really in large part one. It takes place in one building, for the most
Yeah.
part. So it to me, it's like a classic Carpenter movie that people really don't talk about that much. When you say Carpenter and you give people three films to pick, pretty much what three they're going to pick, or at least of 5 or 6 movies what they're going to pick the three of. But In the Mouth of Madness is a great example too, and that was what, 94 or something.
Round about then, yeah. Sam Neill, I could watch Sam Neill painting a wall.
Yeah. Oh,
like he's just fantastic, and he was such a genre staple, kind of. Maybe obviously he was in Event Horizon, but before Jurassic Park was his genre time, and then he was in Event Horizon, but Jurassic Park was the one that he kind of branched off a wee bit from. But yeah,
he was Omen 2, right? Or was it Omen 3?
3. I think he played him. He was going to senator, wasn't he? He was trying to be a senator.
Yeah,
maybe with his aim, assuming to be president at some point. You never know what's happening with that Damien. He's a little dick. Exactly. So, and obviously you've actually just recently released They Live, haven't you? That's the one that I've seen the big, kind of the first thing that comes up on the website is the They Live t-shirts.
Oh yeah. We just did a new collection for They Live. We it's probably our third or fourth time doing it. Well, obviously the anniversary this year is 35th, but we recently, it's about a year or two ago, a little over a year ago, we finally were able to use Roddy Piper's likeness. We weren't able to use it before. And so we finally were able to start utilizing his likeness. It just took a while to get approved. So a lot of the designs that use his likeness, we've had waiting in approvals for like months and months and months. We finally got them approved, but we ended up, by the time we got them approved, we just said, well, we'll just push the collection to this year because it was the anniversary coming up anyway. It was so cool to be able to finally use his likeness, because we kind of had to hide it before in shadow or bubble gum. Excuse me. And now we can actually kind of show his face, which is pretty cool. So that was our new collection for that. And that's another fun one to do because, you have the aliens and you got the typical things, but it's like, okay, this is our like third collection. What are we going to do? What ideas can you do? So you come up with, it really forces you to have to think about something different and how can you breathe new life into this when you've already designed like 10 or 20 shirts. A good example is when we got the Halloween rights in 2013. Again, I know I've said it 10 times already, but being it my favorite movie, I was immediately like excited and elated because here we are working on my favorite movie of all time, and also dreadfully scared because I thought, what the heck are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, this is, it could be anything. And luckily we had a lot of freedom creatively to do what we wanted, but how do you take something that's so iconic that has been done a million ways, not even just as shirts, but there's certain iconic scenes in that movie that you've seen a million times. How do you recreate those without it feeling dated? I mean, the other thing is just the poster art still sells well. So it's a funny thing, right? I mean, we always want to just put our best foot forward and think of something really cool and inventive,
Yeah, excellent. And as I said, the stuff you've got on the site is fantastic. I've just recently found out your site, so I've not managed to get around to it yet in terms of purchasing. And import fees in the UK at the minute are horrendous. I don't know if you know about a thing called Brexit, but it's shit.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure you know about it.
We had to start collecting VAT on our site and remitting it to the UK. So we were basically banned from selling to the UK for like months before we could finally get we had to sign up for VAT, we had to put that on our site, so now we collect VAT and then we have to send it to the UK every quarter and report sales. So it's a whole thing.
So it's been great. It's been fantastically worth it because we got little crowns put on our pint glasses when we go to the pub. apparently that's a good thing. It's not. So where can everyone find yourselves, find the site, if your social medias and things like that, Ben?
Yeah, so the site is frightrags.com, but it's fright-rags.com. And on social media, Instagram, even Facebook still, Twitter, it's all one word, Fright Rags. Even on TikTok, you can find us, Fright Rags on there. So we're pretty active on most platforms. And obviously, if people sign up to our newsletter list, email and SMS, and we actually do SMS in the UK now.
Okay.
And you can get access to our texts. But we do basically weekly releases, and when we do like a coming previews every couple weeks, like we'll do the next few weeks of releases. You can kind of see a tease of all those, so you know what's coming up. So we do try our best to keep people informed of what's coming up, and have fun on social media, and we can interact and stuff.
Excellent. So Ben, thanks very much for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.